Welcome to the Redevelopment Commission meeting on December 5th, 2022. First item of business is roll call.
Deb Hutton here.
Deborah Meyerson here.
Sarah Bowerly-Dansman here.
Martha Street here.
And Cindy Canarney here. Staff present.
John Zodi of the Hand Department.
Christina Finley, Hand Department.
Larry Allen Legal.
Alex Crowley, Economic Sustainable Development.
Britton Pierce is here from the Hand Department. Sorry, Dan.
And Jeff Underwood, Controller.
All right. Next item of business is reading of the minutes, November 21st, 2022. Do any commissioners have any questions or comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Deb Hutton, I'll move to approve the minutes of November 21st, 2022.
Deborah Meyerson, I'll second.
We have a first and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. No opposed. Next item of business is examination of claims for November 10th, 2022 for $59,422.27. Do any commissioners have any questions or comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Deborah Meyerson, I'll make a motion to approve the examination of claims from November 10th, 2022.
And Sarah Bowerly-Dansman, I'll second.
First and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. No one opposed. Next item of business is examination of payroll registers for November 18th, 2022 for $35,670.89. Do any commissioners have any questions or comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Deb Hutton, I move to approve the payroll register of November 18th, 2022.
Deborah Meyerson, I'll second.
We have a first and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. No one opposed? Okay. Next item of business is reports of officers and committees. Is there a director's report?
Just briefly, Madam President, the Commission should expect to see revisions to our rehab guidelines that we've been discussing sometime early next year. One of those you may see sooner than that is a revision to the Neighborhood Improvement Program guidelines, which we discussed in the department just today, actually. So you may see that at your next meeting as we get ready for that Neighborhood Improvement Grant cycle. Our Community Development Block Grant applications are due today at 4 o'clock, so we'll start that process this week on Thursday. I assume we're going to cover this, but I think we've determined our first meeting of next year is January 3rd. Is that right? So,
it's a holiday, so yeah.
So, and then I believe, wanted to ask, I think Commissioner Hutton is going to ask about the calendar, which we'll approve at our first meeting of the year. And then the commissioners need to re-up for if they wish to serve again.
They'll have to be approved, yeah, because your term starts on the 1st of January. So that's,
So you're saying January 3rd is our first meeting?
will be the first.
And we will meet?
Yes.
Okay, just check.
Which is a Tuesday.
Yes.
It is a Tuesday.
And that concludes my report. Oh, did you? Okay.
All right,
Good.
thank you.
Thank you.
Is there a legal report?
No report, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, treasurer's report.
Same.
Thank you. Is there a business development report?
Yep, Alex Crowley, Economic Sustainable Development. So a couple things. One is you may know that the kiln closed last Monday, which was a long time coming. It was a multi-year effort. The kiln, if you don't know, is the building to the north of the mill. And a collaborative group or a collective group of local business owners are working to renovate that. We'll have that renovation happen in multiple phases, the first of which will be a kind of ground story renovation with the second floor to follow at some point. We're excited about that. That's the first private investment in the trades district, so that's kind of notable. You'll see on the agenda for this evening there is a resolution in front of you for the Showers Administration Building. We'll cover that then. But one thing I wanted to give you a heads up about is as early as the next meeting, we will be coming to you with a request for funding to help support a position that will report to the Dimension Mill that will really be organized for leveraging the trades district. So one of the challenges that we've had over the past several years, certainly the pandemic has suppressed a lot of activity. The trades district, as you all know, is focused strongly on the office market, and that market bottomed out with the pandemic. We're kind of coming out of that, hopefully, and there are changes at IU and other kind of marketplace changes that allow us to really double down on the trades district. The problem is there is limited staff at the city to be able to do it to the extent that we want to do it. So one of the ideas is to come to you with an idea for a position that would, again, report to the mill to take hold of the trades district, at the same time be the director of the Trades District Technology Center. Both of those are critical projects for 2023 and beyond. So I guess it's just a heads up that we're coming with that, and we'll look forward to discussing that position with you a little bit more thoroughly next meeting.
All right, thank you. Moving on to new business. First item is the annual informative presentation.
Thank you, Madam President. Good evening, members of the commission and members of the audience. My name is Matt Frischie. I am with Reedy Financial Group, and I'm here tonight to give you guys your guys' annual TIF impact presentation. So if you don't mind, I'll go ahead and share my screen and we can get right into it. All right, you guys see the PowerPoint right here?
No.
Oh, how about now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So as I've said, tonight I'm here to present the Bloomington RDC's annual TIF impact presentation, which will satisfy the final reporting requirement of the year. As you'll see, the prior reporting requirements have been completed. Tonight we're going to briefly touch base on the RDC's financial data and budgets. Talk about some long-term plans or some current projects that the RDC is looking at funding. And then we'll get into the meat of our conversation, which is really going to focus on what is the TIF impact, or what is the impact to overlapping tax units that our RDC has based on the assessed value that our TIF currently has within it. So just a brief breakdown of the two different allocation areas under the purview of the Bloomington RDC. You'll see the Bloomington Consolidated Allocation Area, and this is comprised of several previous areas that have been consolidated over the years, which is why there's such a broad creation year beginning in 1985, and several within there that have been established since that date. And then the expiration year, that's the beginning of the expiration, is 2029. As you know, we reached some of there was differing legal interpretation as far as when the TIF expires, based on statute at the time of the establishment of the areas. So I know starts to expire in 2029, but then there'll be other areas that fall off as we progress in time. You'll see the 2022 incremental assessed value of that consolidated area, roughly $751.5 million. Also, the North Kinser Pike allocation area created in 1996, beginning expiration in 2026. You may be asking, why is this one start to expire before the other one? Like I said, differing statutes based on when debt was issued and what the statute was at the time of creation. Totaling the incremental assessed value that the RDC kind of has under its purview is $756,222,760. So this slide really just informative, just a refresher of exactly how TIF works for those of us that just want to kind of get it clear in our heads. At the time of establishment, we look at a parcel. That parcel typically has a base assessed value. That base assessed value continues to go to overlapping units at the time of establishment. Moving forward, any incremental assessed value or any assessed value that is generated by new construction, new abatement roll-off, or actually subtracted from new destruction will affect our incremental assessed value. So that does not factor in trending. If assessed values are just naturally going up, we're not going to attribute that to work or development that's done as a result of the RDC's efforts. Those will go back to the base and kind of be allocated to the base through the neutralization process. As I said, there was differing statute as far as how long the TIF will last. Current statute says that after establishment of an allocation area, once debt is issued that is payable from that allocation area's revenues, a 25-year clock will start. At the end of that 25 years, that TIF will expire, and now all that assessed value that has been harbored within the allocation area will be released to those overlapping units. So that's where you see at the end of the TIF, this post-project AD will go considerably up at that time. So as far as from a financial position, now these numbers are projections. You'll see that each one of the allocation areas has their beginning balance revenues that we received this year, including projections for our second settlement of the year. Settlements they follow just normal property tax settlements in June and December. Our expenditures, you'll see we do have a large expenditure in the Bloomington Consolidated Allocation Area. A lot of this is projections that may be somewhat dated. I know that constant projects being pushed, updated, that kind of drives some of that expenditure data. I think if we worked with the RDC a little bit closer and had a little bit more conversation about how you want to see those expenditures, we can update those. But really, this won't drastically impact the nuts and bolts of this presentation that we're about to get to. So you'll see your projected end-year fund balance as well. Current future long-term plans for the RDC. I know Jeff had mentioned to include in here Hopewell and Trades District. I don't know if you guys want Jeff to go into a little bit more detail on kind of those plans, and we can also wait till the end to kind of dive into those as well. I have Jeff still muted, so I'll go ahead and assume that we'll just go ahead and press forward. So when we think about TIF impact and how we quantify our TIF impact, we really have to talk about, this is a hypothetical scenario that we're putting together. We can't just assume, well, we can assume, and that's exactly what we're doing. We're assuming that the city, never would have utilized TIF in the community, and all current development that was incentivized or made possible by the assistance of TIF, hypothetically were to still occur. So basically we say, let's just assume that all the assessed value that we have within our allocation areas, if we were to just release that assessed value to all the overlapping units, what would it do to taxes? And we've been able to develop this model that kind of puts together these numbers and comes up with what the actual impact is through a study we did back in 2018. And I know some of you guys have heard me do this exact same presentation and discuss this. But in 2018, we looked at what is the true impact to overlapping units by a unit utilizing TIF. And in order to do so, the level of circuit breaker environment community is in really impacts what that impact is. So we looked across the state of Indiana at 3 different examples: a high circuit breaker environment, a medium circuit breaker environment, and a low circuit breaker environment. From there, we looked at every single parcel in one of those counties, and we released the largest allocation area we could find and saw what it did to every single one of those parcels and what it did to collections. All that being said, we used that model to then come up with these new yearly TIF impacts. So I'll go to the next page and we can kind of see what this hypothetical scenario would look like. So right here you see the circuit breaker impact, and that's key here, the circuit breaker impact to all of these units. Broken down from a dollar perspective, a percent of the total impact, and that's just based on the percent of tax rate that each one of these units has based on the tax districts. Those units specific 2022 budgets, which is important because I can sit here and say that, for instance, the Monroe County Community School Corporation has a $604,000 impact. $604,000 could sound like a lot, but when we compare it to the actual budget that they had for this year, that's only 0.42% of their budget. So keeping in mind, how this number relates to a unit's overall budget is really important when we talk about, the level of impact that we have on these units. So you'll see Bloomington Civil Cities, they do comprise the most of the impact, 54.6%. Understandably, Bloomington City, established the Bloomington RDC. You guys are the main beneficiaries of these TIF revenues that then can go back into the community. Not to say that all of these these overlapping units don't also get benefit from the Bloomington RDC severance, which they do. So if you look at all of these impacts, and I'm not going to go through it and read every single one of the impacts here. And also I should say that if you guys don't already have copies of this presentation, I can freely share it with any and every one of you if you have, or just go ahead and compile those, give them to Jeff, give them to Larry, whoever, and I can get this presentation to you. But if we add up all of those circuit breaker impacts for all of the different units, it comes up to a total impact to all overlapping units of 2.904522. Alternatively, if we look at what the Bloomington RDC collected as far as an annual TIF revenue collections that we're looking at receiving, we're going to receive just over $15 million. So the difference there is $12.13 million, or as we coin it, a TIF margin of 81 cents. Now, the reason why we say circuit breaker impact, this is not additional revenue that each one of these units is losing out on. In the state of Indiana, a unit, is constrained on how much they grow revenue year over year by the state-approved growth quotient factor, which from this year to next year is 5%. So that means that a unit, wanting to increase their taxes for next year, when they look at their max levy funds, can only increase it 5%. So what would happen if we were to release all this assessed value? Essentially, all that would happen, that unit can still grow their max levies by only 5%. All that would happen is assessed values would go up, and tax rates have an inverse relationship, so tax rates would go down. So it would lower the taxes in these units. So alternatively, like I said, the circuit breaker reduction for these units total would be 2.9 million. Alternatively, we receive 15 million in annual TIF collections that can actually be used for redevelopment within the community. So we call that TIF margin, which for your guys' instance is 81 cents. And the next slide will really kind of explain what that 81 cents means. Essentially, the 81 cents is per every dollar that Bloomington RDC collects. 81 cents would never have existed without the use of TIF inside of Bloomington. And that's, once again, goes right back to those numbers that I talked about. Only 2.9 would be collected as far as a circuit breaker reduction, as opposed to receiving just over 15 million in revenue. So that's why we talk about the TIF margin. You guys have a very low circuit breaker environment, which is benefiting this, and this is why TIF is such a valuable tool in your community, is because you guys aren't affected by circuit breaker that much, which gives you this 81 cent TIF margin. So once again, you guys are in a great position. The impact is minimal to overlapping units, and you guys are utilizing this extra 81 cents for redevelopment within the community. And this box over here is kind of stuff I just went ahead and already kind of talked about on the cuff. That is the gist of the presentation. So I will open it up. I don't know if you guys have any questions, want to cover anything. Like I said, I'm always available for questions via email or anything else as well. So I'll kind of defer to you guys and see where you want to go from here.
Any questions from commissioners? I just have one question, not really a question, but I would like to have a copy of the presentation.
Okay, yeah.
We'll send one
And
out.
I'm sure the commissioners would like to see that as well.
We received the finalized copy today. We'll send one
Okay.
out to you right after.
Was that Larry saying he'd send it out, I believe, right?
That's
Yes.
right, Matt. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, perfect.
Any questions from
And-
commissioners?
Cool.
Go ahead.
Yeah, the other thing I was just gonna say, I know just kind of tossing around some emails with Larry and Jeff in preparation for this meeting. There was a discussion about potentially coming in and doing some just general, RDC training and kind of TIF knowledge, just building that up. So, like I said, I don't know how, what you guys' appetite for that is. We do a lot of informative educational workshops. So if it is something you guys wanted to have us come in and kind of do an in-depth, TIF dive, whether it's 101 or talk about a specific topic, we'd love to do it. Don't hesitate to reach out to us. We're always available for education. That's kind of our MO. So,
That's super. Thank you.
yeah, of course.
All right. Let's move on.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is Resolution 22-96, First Amendment to Agreement with Axis Architecture for Trades District Tech Center. Who'd like to speak in regards to this?
I can speak to this, and Larry, to be honest. Alex Rowley, Economic Sustainable Development. So, as you know, we are heavily involved in an Economic Development Administration grant. It was $3.5 million. The RDC has put forward a lot of money to support it, to match. And we are working our way through what's called design development, which is the last design phase before we move to bids. And then once we move to bids and release those bids, we get back hardened real costs for the project. So we're in this moment right now where we have done a preliminary cost estimate under schematic design, but there were a lot of moving parts in the market, including unknown supply chain issues, costs of construction at the time. This was back early summer, and so we are proceeding through this design development and bidding process to be able to ultimately know exactly what this thing is going to look like from a cost perspective. And once you get the bid information back, then you have a much more solid estimate of that. As we go through design development, it's a good idea to do a pre-bid cost on that. Now, the problem is that in order to have someone cost it out, other than the design firm, because they were able to do the initial cost estimate, but you want someone involved in construction to be able to do this, you have to be selective about who to choose, because you can't choose someone who ultimately is going to want to be involved in the construction bidding. So it's a little bit of a complicated process, but Axis Design, who is doing the design for us, has found this partner to be able to do it. In a perfect world, we would have a construction manager to do this. We would have hired one, we would have brought them on board, but that's costly, and to be honest, as we are barreling down this road, we want to be as efficient as possible in terms of incurring costs, and this is probably the key thing that a construction manager can do right now. So we felt that rather than hire a construction manager and have them sort of sit around through the whole bidding process, that we would contract with this party, have them do that final cost assessment before we went to bid, and that becomes a bit of a sounding board so that when the bids come back, we have a sense of it. We think this is an efficient way to do it, and so we're coming to you, and it would be contracted underneath the Axis agreement. So that's why it's an amendment to the Axis agreement as opposed to a standalone contract. Probably doesn't matter either way, but because they were the ones who did it, and it avoids us setting up a new vendor, we wanted to go down this road. So we think it's an efficient way to do it. We ask for your approval of this cost, and certainly willing to answer any questions about it.
Just one question. So just if you could clarify, I understand that this is a partner to Axis. Would Axis then be eligible to put in a bid on the post-bid construction contract?
They are a design firm, so they are already under contract to the RDC. So they have really nothing to gain. They're not involved in construction, so they would not have an interest in that.
But in terms of any design considerations for that, let's say a contractor putting in a bid would want, in terms of, would they have any opportunity for continued involvement with the project after
When
the
you
bid?
say they, you mean Axis, or you say
Axis.
Axis would not have additional responsibilities to the product. They're already on board as our design firm, and
So
they would
they'll
be.
have the full, what they're preparing is a full design, not just, let's say, sorry, the word's escaping me, but just something in terms of the feasibility.
Yeah, oh yeah, they did a preliminary design, they updated the design, they're doing the design development, which is this final phase. They're actually helping us with the whole bid document preparation process, and they will be at the other end, and they will actually be the architect of record if and when we move forward with the building as well.
Okay.
So they're all in
Okay.
already. Yep.
Thank you for that clarification.
Small clarification, probably from my memory. Where's the tech center going to be constructed?
The tech center, that's a good question, I should have said so. The tech center is catty corner from the mill, so it's on the corner of Maker Way and Madison in the Trades District. Yeah, so,
It's flat land. It's not an old building reconstructed. It's
no,
it's
it's
flat land.
part of the green space that's
Okay.
that's undeveloped right now. Yeah.
Thank you.
So I'm new to the other resolutions were passed before I came onto the commission. So could you talk a little bit about how, like, what exactly are we getting for over $400,000 in just design? And it's when you think about the cost of these consulting costs as a percentage of the cost of the like 2 million-ish expenditure anticipated for the actual building, like, is that in line with industry standards in terms of how much it normally costs to consult on designing these things?
Yeah, so I would just, so a couple things. One is the building, while the $2 million is what the RDC committed to the package, the federal government's putting in 3.5. So actually, it's I would think of that design percentage as a percentage of 5.5 to larger. In fact, when we negotiated with them, we realized at the time that the cost would be probably very different than what was originally anticipated, but that's a fixed cost. So we feel that that's a fair cost, design cost. What we're getting is really everything from the original design all the way through to construction and door opening of the building. They are the architects of record, but they also help us with all sorts of non-design related things like bidding and that process. So that's what we're getting. We think it's a fair price. We did negotiate with them, and we feel like they're doing a very good job for us, and that they will help us take this through to completion.
All right, any other questions on Resolution 22-96? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Deb Hutton, I move to accept or approve Resolution 2296 as written.
Deborah Meyerson, I'll second.
We have a first and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Next item of business is Resolution 22-97, approve conveyance agreement of Showers Administration Building. Who'd like to speak to us regarding this?
I can speak to this. This is Alex Crowley again. So this is the Showers Administration Building. If you are not familiar with the building, it's on the corner of 10th and Morton, and it is a beautiful old building that has been the bane of my existence for 4 years. The reason it's a great building. It's arguably one of the best buildings in Bloomington. We have struggled, frankly, pre-pandemic, certainly into the pandemic, but pre-pandemic, to figure out how to have private investment in that building, which is a historic building, needs a lot of work, will take a lot of money to bring up to speed, and we want that building to be aligned with the strategy of the Trades District, to serve the Trades District. To some degree, we think of it as being a gateway building to the Trades District. But it's complicated, and we know that. And we know that theoretically, but we also know that practically, because there have been at least 3 attempts to find a partner to do that building. All of them unraveled late in the process, frustratingly. But they all unraveled for the same reason. And that reason, ultimately, because in all cases they were going to be owner-occupiers or partial owner-occupiers. And what ended up happening in each case is that the building cost, the cost to redo the building, became so insurmountable that financially it was going to be difficult to hire a renovation company and then justify that on the basis of square footage rent. So that's where we found ourselves. Now, Sean Urton from Urton Properties, who's here and can answer questions as well, has a slightly different model, and we think that it's a creative approach to it, and we think it's worth a shot. And he thinks it's worth a shot. And basically what we find different in this conveyance agreement and in the general project is, rather than committing sort of blindly to a full renovation with the hope that it can be justified in the back end, Urton Properties proposes to do a partial renovation to stage the building for tenancy, so to make it more presentable. If you've walked in the building right now, you'll know that it's been sitting empty for a long time. People have broken in and smashed things inside. It's a little bit unfortunate. So there's a fair amount of work that needs to be done to bring that building to a level when someone can sort of understand what it's like to be in it, and that they can see themselves in it. And then based on the needs of that potential tenant, future tenant, the completion of the renovation can happen at that point. The other advantage that Urton Property brings is that it is a property investment company. On the one hand, it also has manpower tied to other work that tends to that is more outdoor work and therefore tends to be somewhat more efficient to use during the off-season. So that creates an efficiency in terms of subcontracting that makes it more financially feasible to do this. So that's the background. We have largely mimicked the terms of an agreement you've approved in the past, which was the previous attempt at this. A couple of minor changes to that, but we feel that this is a good approach. It's one in which we feel that the RDC and the city, particularly the RDC, has minimal risk. Should things unravel for whatever reason, and sometimes they do, as we've discovered, we have the right to require the building. We have certain use limitations on the building that we feel are important. We want to really try to work with Urton Properties to find a tenant that is either technology or office based. I kid you not, in the past someone has approached me for a Dunkin' Donuts in there, and so that's not what we want to see, and Sean and Urton Properties, they're aware of that. So anyway, we think that this is a path forward that could breathe some life into this building, and the worst thing for a building like this is to sit empty, which it's been doing, and we felt the downside of that. So we're really interested in having a partner who understands the vision, is willing to work with us, and more importantly, to get this building back online and active. So I'll pause for questions, and again, Sean Urton's here in case you have questions for the potential buyer.
I'm welcome to take any questions that you guys may have.
Any questions from commissioners?
I'm super excited to hear of a new model, and I appreciate your bringing that to the table. Is it true that Urton Properties is also an investor in the kiln?
That's correct.
Okay, just trying to get a sense of how you see the investment in this property kind of coalescing with the investment in the kiln. There's also, I see, an option for, I think it's lot 6, potentially. So I see a lot of consolidation, which again, it's terrific to have the investment, but I'm just trying to get a sense of how having private ownership that's gradually consolidating in. I realize the kiln is a collective ownership, but just trying to get a sense of what your vision is for that and how that may mesh this project with the kiln, or just the consolidation of ownership in private ownership for what the RDC is supporting.
Okay, are you asking what is the planned use of the kiln and how it will mesh?
I'm wondering, since you're involved with both of these projects, what your vision is and how they may coordinate or mesh.
Okay. So I'm a 25% investor with the Kiln Collective. It's myself and then 3 other investment partners. Actually, a total of 5 other investment partners, but 3 LLCs. For the most part, I'm the site superintendent working with Bailey and Weiler, working on the build out of the Kiln Collective, which we've hired Lucas Brown as our architect representative. He's in the process of starting the applications for permits with the state. We've started very light demo. I would say clean out on the kiln building. It's about all that's allowed without permitting, and we will be able to do some foundation work as well without permitting. The way I see the two working together is, especially if this is something that the RDC can potentially vote on tonight or in the very near future, is it's resources that are really only a block away from each other. I'm also a landscape contractor outside of doing real estate, and I have anywhere from 40 to 60 guys that work for me year round, and right now we're looking for placement for about 40 guys. So we have, some years we have to do some layoffs. We typically do 2 to 3 flips per year, and a lot of the flip and the real estate work is done in the wintertime. We have a massive group of subs that we've been working with for years, from HVAC subs to electrical subs to plumbing subs. So we have a really good relationship established with the subcontractors for not only the kiln but also for the administration building. We're also working with Bailey and Weiler as well, who is a building contractor, and they are helping with the kiln renovation as well. I would say the biggest use of resources right now is going to be my winter workforce. They're not skilled in some of the trades that we're going to be using inside the building. Really, as Alex had kind of mentioned, it's a beautiful, beautiful building in a share. I agree with Alex that I think it's probably one of the best buildings left in Bloomington. I think after renovation, it's going to be one of the finest interior buildings in Bloomington. A lot of that is just hard work as far as renovating floors and opening up drop ceilings, lots of early 1900s woodwork that needs to be restored. So, you know, the initial investment on, actually, how am I doing so far? Am I going down the right path?
You are.
Okay.
I hope that you'll get to the end product in terms of what the kiln, in one case, which is further along, of course, envisions for an end use.
Sure.
And then what, you know, even though I realize this model is more preliminary of doing an initial rehab to then invite potential tenants, but hopefully, you know, the due diligence has something in mind for what those potential tenants might be,
Sure.
even if the full investment is being made at this point. And I'm just trying to get a sense in terms of your interest as an investor and part owner or full owner to what those end uses might be and how they might coordinate.
Sure, so I guess we'll do some separation. So we'll start with the kiln. Currently, the kiln has 6 bays. 5 of the 6 bays have occupants. One bay that is the actual separate structure from the kiln itself, which I believe is referred to as the powerhouse. The powerhouse, we are looking for a tenant for that. 2 of our investors are very involved with the mill, and we're actively seeking tenants for that space. Another one of the ways that these are working together is, again, 2 of the investors for the kiln are very involved with the mill. So they are very aware that there's going to be approximately 18,000 square feet that's available at the administration building. For technical or for tech office space and for professional office space. Really, the end product that we're looking for right now is to, within, say, a 60 to 90-day window, have the building in showable condition on the interior. Not to go through and, you know, we're not looking at doing elevator systems and, you know, remodeling. It's basically taking the existing structure and making it look as good as possible for presentation, which is going to be, again, refinishing the floors and exposing the beams so that we can bring in prospective tenants and there's not broken glass everywhere. There's not, you know, things knocked over, carpet peeling, rotted floors, dropped ceilings, electrical everywhere. Because I'm so interested in have a passion for historical buildings, I can look past that, but most people can't. And that's why we're looking at going in incrementally with investment or with funds. But incremental is still jumping in head first. The first phase is still probably going to be about $1.5 million investment. It's significant. And then we'll have to work with HPC as far as the exterior. However, before we're putting in exterior dollars, we want to get the interior showable, and we want to get that space leased or try to lock in some tenants that we're going to be able to help accommodate their needs through our renovations without sacrificing the historical integrity of the building. That's super, super, super important, I think, to the city, probably to the RDC, and very, very important to me as well.
If I can add, just, and I mentioned during the early part of the meeting, this notion that there's a moment in time right now that we think we can all double down on, which is we think things are kind of coming back around a little bit. We think that there is, again, opportunity with new administrations at IU, with the burgeoning tech sector in Bloomington. Things are kind of coming back to life. And so the idea of bringing in a resource that can help not just with the Trades District Technology Center, but really leverage these assets that we have, whether it's empty land, and there's a fair amount of it left. The admin building, which will not belong to us anymore, but I mean, that resource can be a player in trying to attract the right kind of tenant, right? So that we are helping to guide it. And so one of the advantages of working with Urton Properties is that we kind of have this shared vision. It's not our intention just to walk away once the transaction's done, because we do realize it is an important building in the trades district, and so being able to work cooperatively to try to find that future tenant that aligns most closely with what the trades district master plan asked for way back when, that's where we see this going in the future.
Any other questions from commissioners? If not, I'll entertain a motion for Resolution 22-97.
Sarah Bauer, advancement, motion to approve 22-97. Although I did find a typo, so if we could change that typo in the 1, 2, 3, 4th, whereas I think that's supposed to say received. So,
I also know there is a member of the public that would like to make a comment on this, if you'll allow it, Madam President, Mike Carmen, who's on Zoom.
Absolutely.
But we'll have the motion still on the floor as amended to correct the typo. Mr. Carmen, I believe you've unmuted yourself if you'd like to go ahead and make your comment.
Thank you. You know, on the first order of business, the TIF report, you do not ask for any public comment, and so I assume that it's not permitted. A quick comment on that. Several of you asked for a copy of that PowerPoint presentation. I would hope that's going to become part of the RDC minutes and part of its records. I mean, that's, I don't know why you would accept a report and information in that format and then not make it part of your records. I trust you'll follow up and ensure that. Because, but back to now this resolution. You know, you're on a fast track to approve this, and I'm not sure why. I mean, I'm as impatient as I think anybody else, and impatient more than most, to see some activity at the trades district, some development activity. I've been impatient since 2014. But that doesn't mean you give away the farm to get that activity. The tax assessed value on these 3 lots, because they're lots 6, 7, and 8 are lumped together for assessment purposes, and that's just the way the assessor works with the single tax parcel number for those 3, so it's a combined appraisal value. But there's 3 lots of equal dimensions and basically cookie cutter lots. And the last tax assessed value for those 3 lots is $744,900. The building on lot 8, the assessed value is $129,100. So we got a combined value there of $874,000. You got to take lot 6 out of that. So if we use 2/3 of the assessed value on the land only, since it's lot 7, 8, and not including lot 6, that's still just under $500,000. And that doesn't count the value for the improvement that's on lot 8. If we use the, and that, you know, just doing that, you come up with $628,183. You've got a purchase price here of $400,000. About 2/3 of the assessed value. Now, historically, we generally, those of us that deal with this, try and deal with buyers and clients and purchase agreements, absent an appraisal, we've often found that the property assessed value over the years has ranged somewhere between 20 and 30% less than fair market value, what the market would pay. I think that gap has been closed in recent years as the assessor puts more and more strength on assessments on comparable sales and looking at the sales disclosure forms that are available. But still, we always find a gap that I've never seen yet where the assessed value is more than what an arm's length negotiated purchase price would be, and usually it's quite a bit less. And so you're giving away the farm at $400,000, and it's worse than that. It makes reference to a lot 6 use agreement. No terms what that use agreement is going to be. As this is written, it suggests there'll be nothing paid for the use of lot 6 for up to 10 years by this buyer if this happens. So what is going to be the consideration for? Are they going to be given free use of lot 6, which just exacerbates the differential between fair market value and what they're paying if they're not being charged for use of lot 6. I understand the city's retaining under this agreement the right to try to sell lot 6, but nevertheless, for up to 10 years, it suggests right now, for lack of any other information, that they're paying $400,000 for 2 lots, that's gonna have a reasonable assessed value of $628,000. They're gonna get free use of lot 6. And it gets worse, because there's a retention requirements, and there's the opportunity for RDC to buy the property back at a future time. It's an option if this buyer materially fails in the retention requirements that are specified in paragraph 4. If that should happen and you want to exercise your right to buy it back, you buy it back at fair market value determined by appraisal. So you're going to sell for less than fair market value and buy it back at fair market value. I don't see the logic of that. Now, I understand that it's going to be difficult to determine what that price would be because there's going to be some changes to the building, and fair market value is going to change in part as a result of what work might be done by this buyer in terms of renovating the building. But still, you still have less than fair market value and you buy it back at fair market value. It just defies logic for me. I don't know how you do that. So as a general observation, I find the purchase agreement not to be reasonable by the city, and despite Alex's presentation, I understand the difficulties in the past and some of the offers have been made. I know some of those people who have approached the city on trying to acquire the Trades District, and I understand that, and I understand the retention requirements. All of that said, I don't know why we should be subsidizing the private development by the tune of about $300,000. It just does not seem reasonable. So those are my comments.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Can I respond again? No public?
Any other questions from commissioners? We have a motion on the floor.
I'd be interested in hearing a response from
Just in response to Mike's, and again, I haven't seen the different valuations on the appraisals, but the 2 lots are 0.19 acres each. That gives a valuation of $1.35 million per acre, which I believe is actually more than what the city is getting downtown currently. So that would be for lot 7 and which one is the admin? Admin is on lot number 8. So for lot number 7 and lot number 6, we're purchasing at $250,000, which is $1.315 million. So it's not giving it away at all. And then it sounds like we're also on lot number 8 on the administration building at current appraised value of that building as well too. So in my opinion, you're not giving this away. It's a very, very fair offer.
If I can just add to it, I think just to clarify, Lot 6 is not part of the transaction, right? So just to get the numbers right, so it's 8 and 7. And I appreciate, and Mr. Carmen's been in this world for a long time. Totally appreciate his perspective. I think we should listen to it. The reality is, the value of the building is what someone's willing to pay for it, and that there are theoretical assessed values. But the reality is that, when you have a buyer and that buyer has a price that they're willing to pay, that's the price of that's the value of the building. We have held out for higher values, and those have unraveled. And we do expect a significant investment to be made into the building. And the sense of urgency is that we are entering another winter cycle. That is not good for a building like this. And so there's a willingness to be flexible to some degree. We're not totally giving the thing away, but there's some willingness to be flexible on price in exchange for some of the investment that we are expecting to see. So we could hold out for the theoretical buyer who would be buying it at twice the price, or whatever the other price might be. The reality is, at some point, we want to see this thing come to life, and this is our recommendation for doing that.
Thank you.
You want a second to the motion?
We have a motion on the floor. We have a first. Is there a second?
Second, Deb Hutton.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes. Next item of business is Resolution 22-98, payment for right-of-way acquisition, First Street reconstruction. Who would like to speak to the group regarding this?
Mr. Durkis?
Hi, Patrick Durgas, Engineering Department. For the First Street reconstruction project, we have pretty ample right-of-way there, but there's a few sections that we are grading limits, so basically being able to tie in the slopes of the new roadway cross-section extended onto private property. And so we, I believe it's 4 parcels acquired temporary right-of-way since it's a federal project, following the federal temporary right-of-way process for those 4 parcels. And so this is an invoice for the reimbursement for those purchases. Happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions from commissioners? Any comment from the public? All right, not hearing any comment from the public, I'll entertain a motion for Resolution 22-98.
Deb Hutton, I move to approve Resolution 2298.
Deborah Meyerson, I'll second.
We have a first and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. No one opposed, resolution passes. Any general business discussion for the group tonight?
Just quickly note, Madam President, since the question came up, I thought I said this before, but the presentation that was given out, I emailed it to everyone. It will be, of course, included in the minutes, as is our custom and practice for these types of things.
Thank you. All right, not hearing any other general discussion for the group. I guess we need a motion to adjourn this portion of our evening.
So moved.
So second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Good night, everyone.